Welcome to Turtle Talk. This is Morgan's story and the family's journey. I'm Craig, and
I'm Michelle. Welcome.
welcome back.
Welcome.
Recent episodes, we've really fallen in love with Mayo. We've left the Sioux Falls local outpatient therapy,
Yeah.
and yeah, we're in 2019.
We're in 2019. It's a journey. It really is. With Mayo came a lot of great doctors. I just can't, they were just so amazing. Like every surgery Morgan had, those doctors went above and beyond to make sure that she would not be scared for any of the surgeries. They know that Morgan's nonverbal, but they watched us with her, and they're like, she doesn't even have to say a word, and you know what she's feeling and what she's thinking just by her face. And they're like, it's pretty amazing how well Tom and I can read Morgan, you know. And what's funny is like a lot of her mannerisms from when she was a toddler haven't changed. So we've evolved. We've come from a baby and now we're in like the 3-year-old stage. You know, she's really progressing, albeit very slow, but she is progressing and things are moving forward. And we're doing these surgeries, and these doctors, the kindness to Morgan. Just, I tell you what, we've seen some pretty crappy locations, and every hospital should take a page out of their book about how patient care should be. Every doctor should take a page out of these doctors' books about how patient care should be. You know, for them, it's the research, and it's not about the money. It's about helping people. And money's always a factor, so don't get me wrong on that. The money is always a factor. However, money isn't the driving force. They have a lot of donors because what they're doing is so beautiful. And you know, my biggest struggle, even to this day, is with doctors who get offended because I ask for a referral to somebody else. And instantly I'm met with a brick wall. And I even had one doctor say, "What, you don't trust what I'm saying?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, I don't. Because I think there's more than just your way to move forward with Morgan's care." And, you know, I learned a lot about listening to my inner voice. You know, I'd lay in bed at night and this voice would tell me that something's not right. I don't like this about this. And I dismiss it and I dismiss it. But I've come to learn that when I start getting those little voices saying, you need to change something here, I do it immediately now. I don't even hesitate.
Good.
Which that has really done so well for Morgan. Because there were some doctors out there that I wouldn't trust them with my dog. Seriously. And I'm glad we're rid of them.
Good.
You know, and I think if more people made these doctors work as a team with other doctors and not be so offended when people want a second opinion, that to me just turns me off from some of these doctors. And I'm really tired of like some of these facility policies. And let me tell you, we've been in a lot of facilities, you know, whether it be Mayo, in Sioux Falls, in Lincoln, in Minneapolis, in Salt Lake City. We have been everywhere, right? We have seen a lot. We've been out to Boston to doctors out there. We have seen a lot. And I gotta say, I don't like when you hear staff discussing how horrible the corporation is and some of the policies the corporation has put into place. I think if people knew a lot more of these policies, they would just be like, I'm out.
Gotcha.
You know, I don't think you should force doctors to see X amount of patients for only 2 conditions and in a short period of time, because that's not taking care of people.
Right.
That's running people through a cattle mill. And I think the sooner these facilities figure this out, they would be rich beyond measure, not just monetarily, but through goodness. You know, taking care of each other. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And I tell you, when people don't take care of Morgan, they're off the bus.
Yeah.
But Mayo, surgeries, amazing. The doctor would come in, the anesthesiologist would come in, the nurse anesthetist would come in, the whole nursing staff would come in. After her first surgery, we were just in awe of how amazing they treated her pre-op, post-op, in her room, that I ordered these cute little boxes and I filled them up with candy, and I put this huge thank you note in there for taking such good care of our daughter and for showing us so much kindness. And every caregiver, everyone, even the transport people who moved her up and down the hallways, were so kind to her.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, every surgery, everybody got a treat like that of some kind, because it just, that's how big of a difference they made in Morgan's life and our life in her care. You know, that says a lot.
Absolutely.
How many surgeries have you had? I don't do that locally.
2, but
You know, I mean, I just felt so compelled to thank these guys, and there's no amount of anything I could do to show them how thankful we are for them and how kind they have been to us. You know, I asked jokingly, I asked one of the nurses one day, I said, just out of curiosity, do y'all get a happy pill when you come to work? Because you never see a disgruntled employee or an unhappy, you just don't see it. Maybe there are, and I'm sure there are, but you never see it.
sure.
Never. 6 years, never seen it once.
That's awesome.
Not once. So, you know, Morgan had surgery, I don't know, it was right around, let's see, March, August, October. So I think we might have been on the second fixator, about Christmas of 19, possibly.
Okay.
I'm thinking. And she had surgery, and it's Christmas Eve, or the day, like the 23rd. I think it was like the 23rd. And we were just so blue because we didn't know if she'd be well enough to travel and to get home. And it just, I was very sad. I was very, very sad. And so we asked her doctor, please, can we go to Mass? And he thought we meant to the church across the street. And we're like, no. There's one here in the hospital. He's like, oh, yeah. You guys will get help for you, and you 3 can go to Mass. So we did. And we sat there, and I was weeping a lot throughout Mass. And I don't know what the reading was, but I remember it just felt like it was just ripping at my heartstrings from a mother's perspective. You know, Mary's out there gonna have a baby, and it's everything in the world is fighting against them. And that's how we felt a lot, you know. And it was probably one of those pity party moments. You know, Morgan had just gone through this surgery. I'm missing my other kids. You know, this has already been a tough road, and we're what, 2 years into it? Year and a half into it?
Year and a half, yep.
You know, and it's all another new normal. Like, you just roll with the new normals, but they're hard to swallow. And I remember thinking, gosh, I just want to leave. I just want to get out of church. But something wouldn't let me leave. You know, like Morgan could have been our excuse to get out, but something just wouldn't let me leave. And then after church, I thought, I really want to go talk to this priest. So we need to stay around and talk to this priest. I thought I needed to talk to the priest. Come to find out, it wasn't the priest that I needed to talk to. There was this couple sitting behind us with their kids. And after Mass, they gave us each a hug and they're like, we are going to pray for you guys. And oh, God bless you. And we ended up sitting there visiting for, I don't know, I bet a half hour. Well, they gave us a gift. It was so beautiful. He runs like a driving school in Rochester.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of it. And by God, one of these times I'm going to find these people again. But they gave us this 1 decade little rosary, and it was made out of these stones. And I don't know if I got the story quite right, but a friend of his, I believe, had gone to Medjugorje and was healed. So he reached down and picked up this handful of stones off the ground, and he brought them back and started making these little 1 decade rosaries, and in hopes of passing his healing on to other people. So he had given it to his friend and their family, and then they gave it to us. And I just thought that was the best gift ever. It was just such a heartfelt moment. And we've had so many of them. Like, God just keeps touching us, and it's just whether you're awake enough to see it. You know, that was one of those moments. I remember sitting in the cafeteria at one of Morgan's many appointments, because mind you, during this fixator period,
Yeah.
I'm going every week.
Right.
So, by God, you learn real quick the cafeteria, who's got good coffee, you know. And so I was sitting there feeding Morgan, and this little nun comes up, and she asked if she could sit with us because the cafeteria is crowded. I said, oh, please, I would love you to sit with us. So we visited, and her health wasn't well and stuff, but she was just so positive. And, you know, we just had the most amazing visit. And then she sat and she goes, I really need to pray with you, you know, and so we prayed for a while, and I said, can I ask? I said, a lot of people come up to us. I said, why did you come up to us? And she said, God just told me I needed to come and pray with you. She's like, and I knew you'd be receptive. And I just thought, thank you, Jesus, for giving me another messenger when I'm feeling really blue. Because I'm making these trips alone. Tom had to work. You know, we're living off from one income. We're trying to make ends meet. We're trying to, you know, heal her. We're praying for miracles. We're talking to Deacon Jack frequently, you know. He, you know, he came to visit. I think it was like I think he came in 18, I want to say. He came to our house, 18 or 19 in the summer. He flew in and came and spent a weekend with us, which was just so wonderful. You know, he's really become family, because we still see him at least once a year, if not more. We talk, you know, as much as we can. You know, but we keep meeting these people. People just would come up to us in the store, at Mayo. I got stopped by more people just, and sometimes they just don't even say a word. They'll put a hand on top of Morgan's head. They'll say a quick prayer, and off they go. And at first it was a little like,
Yeah.
why are you touching her? But now it's like, it's very welcomed. If someone's going to stop and take the time to put a hand on her head and say a prayer to God for her healing, I will take it.
Yeah.
I will take it. So we finally decided that after our horrible Hawaii trip, the god-awful trip from hell with United, oh, that airline, they ended up refunding our full trip. which
Okay.
was quite amazing, right? So Brendan's horrible graduation trip turned out not so bad because they tried to make amends. They refunded all, 11 airline tickets or something. And so then we decided, let's go. We need another family trip. We need some positive. Morgan's fixators are off, and let's go. So we decided, let's go to Mexico, go to an all-inclusive resort so we can just be together as a family. And I tell you, that was probably one of the best family trips we have ever taken. All our kids, Tom and I just sat there and watched them all interact. Even Morgan, her brothers would come and grab her and put her on her floaty and float her right up next to the swimming pool bar. And Morgan, you want some beer? Morgan, I mean, it was just, everybody includes her, And Tom and I would just stand there, it's kind of like that Hallmark moment where you're just standing there, and we were so proud of our children who had to grow up so fast. I mean, it was terrible. They had to grow up so fast in this, but all our kids are so close, and I love it. Even to this day, like I'll be FaceTiming with one of the kids, and another kid will walk in the room and they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then the phone gets passed around, and pretty soon everybody's talked to everybody, and they call each other for advice and they call each other for help. And Tom and I are truly blessed that even through this horrific accident, that I think our family is closer than we could have ever prayed for.
I can see that.
On our way to Mexico, or our way home, I don't remember. We really look like chaos when we travel.
Yeah.
So let me back up. When the triplets were like, I don't know, 9 months old, we took them to Mexico on a family vacation with my whole family. Boy, if we weren't a zoo walking through that with 800 suitcases, because you can't just travel without formula or baby food
Right.
and diapers, and that's how we look now.
17 changes of clothes.
We still look like a caravan of lunatics traveling. Lots of suitcases and stuff, but so of course we're a hot mess, and I admire people who actually can stay looking very nice and don't end up with food on their clothes when they're traveling. Me, I always end up with, like Morgan sneezed on me, there might be snot somewhere, or food that she spit on me, or coffee that I've dribbled down, and my hair is always like all over the place, right? It's hilarious. Mm-hmm. But this couple came up to us, and the wife said, "Oh, God bless you." She said, "We know your pain all too well." We ended up sitting there. We had quite a layover, if I remember right. And we sat there and visited for probably a half hour with them. And they had a child, or they did at that time still had a child that was like Morgan, and they were the full-time caregivers. And this was the first vacation after like 10 years or something that they were able to go on by themselves without their child with. And they were almost lost. So it was like they searched us out, just to kind of get a little glimpse of home for a minute, and stuff. But boy, we all were standing there and we're talking and we're laughing, and then we're crying and we're hugging because our lives were so parallel. And it was, in a way, it was such a relief that we finally had met someone who understood.
Sure.
I mean, we had met a lot of families with kids who had TBI injuries. When we were down in Nebraska, this one girl, Sydney, she had a horrible car accident. Horrible. And her parents, boy, they really were an encouragement to us. And their daughter was, I don't know, 6-7 years out of her accident, and she was figuring out how to walk with a walker, and her speech, she could get some words out. It was hard to understand, but her parents knew exactly what she was saying,
Sure.
just like we do with Morgan,
Yeah.
And I tell you what, they gave us so much hope. So much, that maybe someday, I mean, I still pray for the miracle,
We'll
but,
get there.
Someday I'm hoping and praying that Morgan will walk and talk, and, we'll get those days back, and nothing.
You just got to make the progress.
I know. I keep telling myself, in the beginning, they scared the shit out of us. She should be in a nursing home. She's going to die. She's going to, she's gonna. And one of the things that just always was a fear factor for us was they would say that she'll make progress, but then she'll regress and you'll lose what you gained. Or at least you go ahead 3, you come back 2. Go ahead 3, come back 2. And we were seriously, that looms over me still to this day. However, I just keep thinking how blessed we are because Morgan's never regressed.
Right.
I mean, I feel like I need to knock on wood here because she's never regressed. Everything she's gained, she's kept. And that girl, she just fights like hell to keep going. I've never seen anybody do planks in a wheelchair before, but she does planks in a wheelchair, and she's got rock hard abs.
Mm-hmm.
It just amazes me. But it was such a blessing to meet these people, and there's so many more we'll learn about as we go. That just walk into your life, and they're there for a reason. And I really find that when I'm struggling, I start praying for someone or something to give me peace and calm. And out of the blue, here comes a stranger. And I always thank them. I always thank them for being God's messenger to give me a little bit of strength on that day.
It's a God thing.
It is a God thing. It's, back to Bob and Mary and Elizabeth and Ellen and Shane and Mike and Amy, and and Carol. There's been so many just from that group that we went to a wedding, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, and we kind of felt out of place because we didn't know a lot of people except the bride and the bride's dad and stuff. But people were coming up to us saying, "Oh my gosh, it's Morgan. Oh, I can't believe it. She looks so good. And do you remember us from church?" And we're like, vaguely, and not that I didn't remember them, but it was, that whole period was such a blur. But it goes to show that just because we left, we didn't leave.
Right.
And I am so amazed at the love that we still to this day keep receiving, and the support and the prayers. It's just, you couldn't even design this by yourself to be this beautiful.
That's good.
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys, so keep the comments and the questions coming for us.
Yes. Love the questions. Please subscribe. Go to www.givemorgan.org or visit me at my real estate website, realtorcraigbertrand.com. And we always want your questions, comments, like, and share wherever you listen or watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.